On today's show, Mark Cuban selling his majority ownership stake in the Dallas Mavericks. What does it mean for the Mavericks moving forward? Also, the Mavericks got off to a hot start this season, but have fallen into some struggles as of late, including not being able to close out a game against the OKC Thunder in which they had a 30-0 comeback. Plus, Dereck Lively's early impact as a rookie for this Mavericks team. It's all coming up right here at Locked On NBA.
You are Locked On NBA, your daily NBA podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up and welcome to another edition of Locked On NBA, the biggest stories with the local experts. I'm your host, Jackson Gatlin, also host of Locked On Rockets right here on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. As the weather gets colder, the offers stay hot on FanDuel because right now new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 money line bet. That's $150 if your team wins. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, there is no better time to get in on the action right now. We take a look at the money line betting options for the first ever NBA in-season tournament. We can take a look at the Boston Celtics, who are currently minus 200 favorites on the road against the Indiana Pacers. And then the Sacramento Kings minus 178 favorites at home against the New Orleans Pelicans. And then elsewhere for the Tuesday night bracket, we've got the Milwaukee Bucks minus 200 favorites against the New York Knicks. And then the LA Lakers minus 130 favorites against the Phoenix Suns, Kevin Durant and Devin Booker and company. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and so much more. So be sure to go check out FanDuel.com/Locked On to get started this season. FanDuel, official partners of the NFL. Joining us now is the host of Locked On Mavericks, Nick Angstadt. You can track down wherever you listen to your podcasts and on YouTube. Just search Locked On Mavericks. And Nick, you and I were both in the building at American Airlines Center the afternoon that the news dropped that Mark Cuban would be selling the Dallas Mavericks to Miriam Adelson, the Las Vegas Sands casino company, for an amount roughly around $3.5 billion. That's a lot of cheddar cheese there, but that he would also be retaining control of basketball operations. This might be a first as far as like NBA, ownership, selling, majority stakeholder stuff, all that. So just give me your reaction first to the news, and then we'll get into kind of what it means for the Mavericks moving forward.
Yeah, the reaction was, okay, wait, what's happening? Hold on. I thought this would never happen. And then once you found out the details and all got ironed out, and now we're, a week or so removed from it, you realize, okay, it kind of does make some sense. And I still don't really understand why the family had to come in and then buy the Mavericks for them to open this casino. But the plan seems like long-term is for the Mavericks and Las Vegas Sands to open a joint casino resort, Mavericks Arena, new whole thing in Dallas. In DFW, I guess, but probably in Dallas, to have a new Mavericks Arena, new facility, all that kind of stuff attached to casino resort and all that. And so eventually this is going to lead down that. But where it affects the Mavericks is, yeah, Mark Cuban's still going to have control of basketball operations, but the Adelson family will be the owners and be the owners outright. But Mark Cuban still does have shares. Like, he's still a part owner. All the other minority owners are going to sell, and it's just going to be these two, like these two power families, I guess, if you want to just put those two right there. And he's not selling the entire Mavericks, right? He's just selling the majority stake in it. And so they'll have the majority stake. He'll have a minority stake, but he'll still have the hands on the controls. And as I was thinking about this, we've had owners that own the team, but then other people, they send a proxy or they send somebody to the governor's meetings or something like that. We've had owners like that in the past, I'm pretty sure, for the NBA. So it's going to kind of be like that, where a minority owner, like a Jay-Z for the Nets. He has more say in some things than Joe Tsai or whoever the owner of Mikhail Prokhorov or whoever the owner of the Nets was at the time. It's going to be a situation like that, except for that it's Mark Cuban and he did actually own the team outright and all that.
And it was just weird because I feel like Mark Cuban kind of came in, took over the Mavericks, and kind of changed a little bit about what it meant to be an owner of a sports organization, right? He was so bought in and so engaged and so active. He wasn't just a figurehead for the Mavericks, right? He really embodied, and still to this day does, which is why the sale came as kind of a shock, because until we got all the details out there, it was like, what? Mark Cuban was like, he was so intent on never selling the Mavericks. We would have never thought we would have heard this sentence ever uttered.
Well, it was more confusing because he even a month or 2 months before the sale, he was even saying, no, I would never sell. And somebody would ask him, what if it was 2 billion, 3 billion, 4 billion? He said, what would I do with $2 billion? Well, now we're about to find out, because he is getting $2 billion from this sale. The valuation of the Mavericks comes in at 3.5 billion, which doesn't seem big enough. It seems like that was a leverage play in there a little bit. Imagine leveraging like half a $1 billion or $1 billion in some kind of play. Like, imagine that. But that seems like where we are now with this. And now, going forward, there's a ton of questions that like just can't be answered until we see certain situations. Because what if they hit the second apron? What if they want to spend? What if they got to re-sign Dereck Lively to the max later in his career and they'll go over the second apron, right? Like, what if something like that happens? Does this ownership group want to spend? Will they be able to, we saw Joe Lacob look at an amount of money for the Warriors and go, you know what? I don't know. And they traded Jordan Poole. Like, we've seen owners like this in the past balk at some of these machinations that the NBA and the Players Association and the whole CBA have put into the new CBA to try and like avoid large spending. And so I don't know. We'll see what happens going forward. We'll see if any changes get made to the Mavericks business side, because that Mark Cuban's now out of that. And so we'll see what happens. Sint Marshall has been leading that side and, for all intents and purposes, doing a great job at it and has a great Q rating. Everybody seems to love Sint. We'll see what happens going forward. I mean, there's just a ton of questions.
All right, well, we'll save those questions for a little bit later on. Let's get to some of the basketball here for the Mavericks, though. They had a 9-3 start to the season, just 2-5, though, over these last 7 games, including I don't know if you want to say it, like a miraculous loss against the Thunder.
It was a miraculous loss.
All right, fine. Maybe the best way to describe it, a 30-point comeback. They go on a 30-0 run to come back and take a lead and get ahead in this game. And they somehow still managed to choke that one away. Walk us through what happened there at the end of the game, or just some of the comeback and why the Mavericks still lost that game.
Yeah, this was a game where Kyrie was out, Tim Hardaway Jr. was out, Josh Green was out, Dante Exum was out, Maxi Kleber was still out. That's like essentially a whole bench unit and Kyrie, right? Like that's a huge part. That's like half of your rotation that's out. And the Thunder were fully healthy. And so you come into this game and you go, all right, Luka's coming back from, his fiance just had a baby. And so it's his first game back. Usually a guy gets a boost after that. Players play well after that. But still, who knows what kind of condition he's in, shape he's in, as far as how much sleep he's gotten. Like, who knows? And so this is one of those games where from the very beginning, it seemed like, all right, well, the Mavericks don't have it. The Thunder were shooting 60%, 50% from three. After the third quarter, they were shooting 51% from three. They had hit 18 threes in the first 3 quarters. The Mavericks had only hit 30%. And so it just seemed like one of those games where Jason Kidd was going to try a bunch of young guys. He played a couple of the two-way players in the first quarter. He played them early, played everybody up and down the bench. And so it was just going to be one of those games where, kind of a schedule loss. Second night of a back-to-back for the Mavericks, too. Kyrie is out, half of the rotation is out, most of the scoring is out besides Luka, and so it wasn't in the cards. Luka then, to start that fourth quarter, the Mavericks run a couple of plays where Luka he guards Chet in the post. Chet is trying to post him up, and that like fired Luka up. Like it was almost as if you remember the Larry Bird, like, I can't believe you have a white guy on me. Yeah, it was like Luka was like, I can't believe this rookie, this like skinny rookie who I probably weigh 100 more pounds than, is trying to post me up right here. And Luka wraps around and smacks the ball right out of him. I knew it. I was all the way across the arena where I was sitting from it, and I just knew as soon as Chet tried to post him up, like tried to size Luka up, he was getting the ball. AJ Lawson, one of the Mavericks two-way guys, been in the NBA for, I think this is his 3rd year, runs the ball down, like out hustles everybody, gets the ball, passes it back to Luka. He hits a 3. That was like a 9-0 run at that point. And Luka just gets so fired up. He's like, let's go. He's like screaming at the crowd, screaming at everybody. The Thunder take a timeout. And then this is when it changed a lot. The Thunder started doubling on Luka. And we've seen it work in a couple ways. You have to be so disciplined and you have to be so on your P's and Q's if you're going to double Luka, because he's going to find the right guy. And the Mavericks hadn't hit a ton of their threes. But in this instance, they double Luka. He hits Seth Curry. He hits a 3. They double Luka. Dereck Lively was the release valve. He goes in the middle of the court right at the free throw line. Luka gets the ball to him. And Lively, we haven't seen this from him at all this season, but 3 times in this run, Lively gets the ball at the free throw line, and either Chet is out of the game or Chet was guarding Luka, and so he's doubling Luka. They've got no size at the rim, and so Lively just turns, takes one dribble and dunks it, or turns and takes one dribble and gets the ball in the hoop. He was amazing. Dereck Lively was absolutely amazing. Like, Luka's going to get a ton of the credit for this run. He should. He had 18 assists. He was absolutely incredible in this, but Dereck Lively just made it happen both on the defensive end and on the offensive end. The Mavericks hit a bunch of threes, and then at the end, the Mavericks just ran out of gas. I mean, Luka played the entire second half. Lively played the most minutes he's played in the NBA. He played almost 40 minutes. He played so much in this game, and they really ran out of gas. Second night of a back-to-back. The Thunder had some rest and were coming in. And the last 2 minutes, they just didn't score. And Luka got a weird travel call that he had some comments about later on, where he said that call doesn't get called the whole rest of the game, but you call it on me in the last 2 minutes. Couple of bad turnovers, and then that kind of sealed it for him. It was really depressing right at the end. But then you look back at the comeback and you go, you know what? There's some really good stuff in there. The stuff that you're going to take away. Hopefully this wakes up all right, Luka and Lively are like a real force. And going forward, this is what the Mavericks can really build their team around.
We know what Luka can do, and we also know kind of in theory what a big like Dereck Lively could have provided to Luka. And that's I think one of the special things about this early going for this Maverick season is seeing that they really they've unlocked their like center of the future, that two-man game between Dereck Lively and Luka Doncic. And it's only going to get better as those two guys get more and more reps together, because I feel like it's important to remind everybody, Dereck Lively is a rookie and he's doing this stuff. And you said to me the other day that he might be, or is, the third most impactful player on this Mavericks roster.
He is. He's very clearly. I mean, you can't bring up another. Derrick Jones Jr. has had some good games for sure, and he's been great. Tim Hardaway Jr. has had some good games, but you just look at the plus minus, like the on-off numbers with Derrick Jones, like Dereck Lively. He's been amazing. And Mavericks fans and media and everybody, we've been asking for a center like this for years. I mean, going back to, okay, Dwight Powell has started so many. He's been starting for the Mavericks.
Like you have to hunker down. You're like, okay,
on and on. You got to kind of duck a little bit because the flames and arrows will be coming at you. Dwight Powell has started like 20 or so games for the Mavericks, going all the way every year, going back to like 2016. Like they have not answered this center question for that long. Like, Jackson, do you know that that's longer than I've been doing Locked On Mavericks? Like that's a long time for the Mavericks to still not have an answer at the center position. They finally get one. He's 19 years old. He didn't play a lot at Duke. Like he went to Duke because he wanted to make it harder for himself. He's already had 3 or 4 games now that were better statistically than what he's had at Duke so far. Like it's just so different. And part of it is, yes, Luka can just use a guy like that so much better than maybe anybody else in the NBA. Like everybody, even Jokic. Like Jokic doesn't use a center like this because he is the center. So it's like nobody else uses a center like Luka does and can make a center look good, which is one of the reasons why Dwight Powell has played a ton, right? Like because him and Luka had good chemistry and they did some good things together. But Lively has been so awesome. He's 19. He learns every game. And I just love hearing from his mom, who played in college, and I think maybe played professionally, but she gives him notes after every game, and it's fun to hear how they've just been working game to game. Like they're just never stopping.
How will Mark Cuban selling the team ultimately impact the Mavericks down the line, if at all, with him retaining control of basketball operations? And how much more can the duo of Luka Doncic and Dereck Lively grow and get better as the season moves along? You'll have us covered for all of that and more over at Locked On Mavs. Nick, thanks for stopping by Locked On NBA with me.